Okay, so last time our fearless, the last time we talked about Samuel, our fearless Jake was talking about chapter 22. Who can remember what happened? Who can remember what happened in chapter 22?
Saul was chasing David, right?
Yes.
But weren't there something happened?
That's broadly what happened. Something happened.
And someone else can continue. Was it the last time we did it? Was it when I don't know if they were priests or something were slaughtered?
Yeah, it wasn't been that long ago, everyone. You have short-term memory problems.
All I remember when he was teaching was like something with the seal and the stamp, and that's like was something.
Yeah.
Oh, the types. Yeah.
Types of shadows, and Jonathan was the type of Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah.
And David and Jonathan met for the last time before Jonathan dies in chapter 23.
Yep. And so,
And Saul was chasing David, and then Saul was called to fight justice, right? Yeah. So he had to.
no, that's today, right?
Oh, yes.
That's today. Hey. Sonny was already stealing my thunder, so now my wife can't steal my thunder too. Okay, so just paraphrasing. Jake, thanks for chapter 22. I think you did a really good job.
I actually did chapter 23.
You did 23?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's okay though.
no, you did about the slaughtering the people, right? You-
It was where they went around the hill. There was like two sides of the hill at the end. And we said it was like the Red Sea kind of. And there was, Saul got called away by the Philistines like you were saying.
Did you do 22 and 23 or just 22?
That's 23 because I read that today.
Oh, wait, what?
I did 22.
Oh, Jake did 23. Okay, well, we'll be very brief with 22 and 23.
Well, I already tried this.
Okay. All right, well, let's just review 22. So Saul and the Lord are clearly separated, right? But then Saul still pretends he's doing things for the Lord, right? Saul is really out for himself, right? Saul only cares about himself. He never really, he doesn't see, like David sees this as God's kingdom. Saul sees it as his kingdom, but he still kind of pretends like he's doing things for the Lord, even though when he's sinning against God. That pretty much summarizes 22, and then of course. And also in 22, what happens? Saul kills what? Right. Priests. So he's clearly not on the Lord's side if you're killing all the priests. Okay. So that was 22. And threshing floors. Right here. We didn't really talk about that. Threshing floors probably looks like this. So you have wheat on the ground, and then you have big animals that go around it and crush it. And Keilah is right about here. Okay, let's jump ahead to. Let's jump ahead to 23. Actually, I did it out of order. Okay, how about Wade? Do you mind reading the first verse?
Okay, and now they told David, behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and are robbing the threshing floors.
All right, I'm going to go through it very quickly because apparently We already did it. Keilah is right here. These are threshing floors. Okay. And so David prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to attack the Philistines. They were afraid. David said again, the Lord said to attack. David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. What happened? What do you think happened back at this time if you were in a city and it was sacked? You were in a city and it was conquered by Philistines or conquered by someone else. What do you think would happen?
Become slaves.
Men and women would become slaves. What happened to the men? Probably killed, right? This is the way the world's been since, United States, when they go to war, they're a little bit nicer. But even World War II, Adolf Hitler, this is how he did things in Russia when he would conquer a city. This is the way, when the Greeks and the Romans would fight. This is the way that the world was. Men, most of them would be killed. Women and children would become slaves for the army, for the other side. Not a very good situation, not at all. Okay. And so obviously, Abithar, the son of Ahimelech, fled to David to Keilah. Who was Abithar? And who was Ahimelech? Who was that? Yes, the priest. What happened with the priest? What happened to the priest?
He got killed.
Yeah, they all got killed. Saul killed them all, right?
Go away.
Right.
Go away.
And then only Abithar got away, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah. He fled. So he's the only
Pray it
priest
again.
that all the other priests were killed.
Oh, yeah, he's almost.
Also, at least there's one remnant. That's great.
So, do you know what an ephod is? Where's the ephod? Who can tell me? Is this the ephod? Yes or no? No. Is this the ephod? Yes or no?
No.
What about this? Is this the ephod? No one answered. This is the ephod, right? This is the ephod right here. This thing right here.
Isn't like the apron?
Yeah, it's like the apron with the.
Sorry, it's not an apron, it's an ephod.
When David wants advice from God, a lot of times he will take this and wear it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think?
Because ephod has like the 12 stones of Israel, right? The 12 stones of Israel, like the 12 different kind of colored stones.
Yeah.
He's representing Israel.
Yeah, but don't you think David is sort of like a priest? He's been anointed as like.
Yeah, like a priest. Oh,
So David would take one of these and he would wear it like a priest, and then he would ask for advice from God. Right? Okay.
oh, so he's talking to God and he has to wear that at that time.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes he would kind of be a priest. No. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Keilah, I think it looks like this. I'm sorry for the watermarks here. This is about as good as I can get. Some, like, if you want a picture of Bethlehem, Jerusalem, those pictures are really good. Keilah, the quality of pictures, they kind of start dropping off a little bit. Okay, so David prays to God, will Saul come to Keilah? And and when Saul comes to Keilah, will the city give him up? And what was God's answer? Would Keilah surrender David to Saul? Yes or no? Yes. So David's got to leave, right? Okay. So next, David went to the wilderness of Ziph. Now, this is kind of cool. Ziph is right here. So we went from Keilah right here to Ziph. And I saw this. This is the wilderness of Ziph. I thought this was pretty cool. This little mountain, this little building area. Hi, Mila. Okay. So what happened with Jonathan? Jonathan did what? Jonathan went to David to do what? He says, "Do not fear, for the hand of Saul, my father, shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Saul, my father, also knows this." So what is Jonathan doing? What is Jonathan doing? Is Jonathan godly or not godly? Godly. So he's going out there to do what? To encourage him, right? Right. He's still and he's encouraging him too. And then Jake talked about this earlier about how remember earlier up in chapter 18, Jonathan literally gives David his robe. Wow, that's amazing, because David's going to be the king. David's going to be the king. God has anointed him to be the king. This is going to happen. Jonathan has faith, and Jonathan is obedient to God, and he says, "You're going to be the king. Here's my robe." And this is similar to this. Do not fear, you will be the king. My father knows this. And it's fun. It's interesting with Saul, because Saul's got kind of like two personalities, right? He's got the personality that wants to kill David, and he's got the one that knows at the end that he's going to lose. Kind of like the devil, right? The devil knows he's going to lose at the end, but anyway. Sorry, I completely forgot we went through this already. Okay, and they make another covenant before the Lord. The Ziphionites told David that Saul that David was there also. What happened? And this is toward the end. What happened at the very end? So when the Ziphionites told Saul David was there, how did David get away? How did David get away? That's a good guess. I think we talked about it earlier. What happened? Well, the Philistines did what?
Philistines attacked when
Right.
Saul was chasing David on the other side of the mountain. Was about to catch him.
Saul had to turn back.
So, yeah. The Philistines had made raid against the land, and now Saul has to stop pursuing David and turn to go fight the Philistines. Okay, this is similar to earlier when Saul's pursuing David, and everyone starts prophesying. Right? This is another miracle. Go ahead.
I had a question. When I was reading that earlier, I thought, so, like in his free time, is he just focused on pursuing David the whole time, and then if something takes his attention away, like, okay, people are invading my land or something, then he goes, but does he not do any other of his kingly responsibilities or anything? Or is-
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
That's interesting. Like, that's his whole free time. My hobby is pursuing
Right.
David.
It's definitely his top priority. It's definitely his top priority. His top priority is destroy David.
So then other people are like running the land, I guess, when he's
I mean, he knows that David's the greatest threat to his kingdom, I think, and so yeah, that's crazy.
Not to his kingdom, but his throne. Because his kingdom will like,
Like, You're right. No, you're right, Judy. Yes, yes, Sophia. Sophia, did you make the tea?
Yes.
The tea is really good today.
I feel like so much more energized.
Ephod, right here.
Right?
Right.
Is that okay? And then you just change his language.
Yes.
Yeah. Because David actually asked God twice before he put on ephod.
Right.
Verse 1 and then I think it's verse 4, right?
Okay.
And God answered him with both sentences. And then after he put on ephod, God answered like, he will, they will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think ephod plays a really big role in yeah.
Yeah, especially not now. Especially not now. But yeah. I don't know.
I thought of it as even like just a humble gesture, like he's putting something on, or because when I read it, I thought maybe that's why it's special, versus kind of like some people choosing to kneel when they pray, or just some outward gesture
Maybe.
of humility, asking God for advice.
I think what's going on is that David replaced all the judges from, I think, Deuteronomy. And so he is, and you have a kingdom ruled by priests. And I really think, because remember, Saul and David, once they become anointed, they both prophesy. So I think they are legitimate priests. And I think as a priest, they can have this. And I don't know why they choose. Maybe David says, there's one available. Why not? I really don't know. I didn't really want to make a huge deal of it. I just kind of wanted to explain why he's got it, but not that it's necessary. Not that look. If you want to pray to God, you definitely don't need to go out and and buy one of these things. You don't need to buy an ephod. I might want to wear it today, like as a joke, like an ephod, but you don't need it. You really don't need it. Yeah. Anyway, we have direct access to God through Jesus, our intercessor. So we don't need anything like that. And so.
Yeah, I just find this putting ephod on behavior very interesting, and then God's answers before and after ephod are like different, very different. Like one is like God answered, and then God said. After ephod, like they will, he will. Oh, this is really great conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
Like without any explanation, or like just this is your question.
Yeah, they don't give a lot of explanation. Now I know in the Bible, I know they've only got so much to write. They've got one scroll, and in Samuel they actually have two scrolls, 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, because they couldn't have it all. So I'd like for them to be a 300-page book and explain everything, but I guess we're asking for too much. You can tell when you read the Bible, they'll just have one verse and they'll just pack it full of information, and you wish that they would you wish that the prophet would just say, you know what, let me just add another scroll and just kind of elaborate on this one thing, but they don't do that, unfortunately. Yes?
Maybe because they really didn't have time. Like God knew that, look, you're in a hurry now. I will not answer you with long, give you long information, like really long information, because you gotta run. You gotta do something right now. Just do it, right? Like I'll tell you, yes, danger's here, and then you gotta go and run. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have time to explain things to you right now. Just do something.
The ephod is like two stones, and there's yes and no. And so when the answer, like the Lord goes after yes, and related to training, yes, it's like a yes or no.
Yeah, and then you gotta make the decision.
Yeah.
I think this is something like when we take orders, it's like, okay, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. So next is David is near the Dead Sea in En Gedi. En Gedi, right here, near the Dead Sea. So it looks a little bit like this, En Gedi.
Basic.
Yeah, a lot of it's En Gedi. It's a lot of these places kind of look depressing. But they're very-
Grand Canyon.
no, it's not the Grand Canyon. That's the Dead Sea right here. This is the Dead Sea. Yeah, it looks a little bit like it. It looks a little bit like a canyon. Yeah. So the canyon has a little bit less water, but it looks a little bit like it. The climate's probably very similar. And okay,
How tall is the mountain?
how tall I think the mountain is. Annabelle, what do you think? Jackie, how tall do you think that? Jackie, how tall do you think it is? Mila.
Like here or 1,000 meters. How do you think? Here or one.
Okay. Taiwan has a lot more mountains.
Yeah.
I'm gonna defer to the Taiwanese people because they'll probably know mountains better than me.
High mountain. Around 1,000 meters.
It's about 2,000.
This is the COVID-19 photo.
Oh.
Put on the mask. Put on the mask. Put on the mask.
But I couldn't see Joanna. Okay.
Put on the mask.
Well, let me put on my mask. Don't take a picture of me like trying to put on my mask, please.
Okay, I want to see everyone here. Yeah.
Okay. So David is here now, running away, and the place that where Saul stopped pursuing David is known as the Rock of Escape. Rock of Escape. Okay, and now he's in the strongholds of En Gedi. Okay, strongholds of En Gedi. Okay, now we're going to start new stuff. So how about, Patricia, do you mind reading verse 1?
When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, "Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi."
All right, so does Saul know where David is?
Wilderness.
Yeah, Saul knows where David is. So, Saul, what do you think Saul's going to do?
He's gonna take a vacation. Say, I'm done.
Yeah, he's going to say, you know what? I'm going to give it to the Lord. No, not really. Saul took 3,000 chosen men of Israel and sought David at the Wild Goats Rocks. And I'm sorry, I couldn't find these places. I couldn't find Rock of Escape or Wild Goats Rocks. These are places that are not very, very well marked. Okay. So, does anybody know what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Saul's going to relieve himself.
Yes, he's going to relieve himself. Okay. He's going to relieve himself. Literally in the Hebrew, it means cover his feet. What does that mean? What does cover his feet? This is Hebrew. It covers, drop his pants and pee. The way men do it. The way men do it out in the desert is drop the pants and so that it's covering your feet and then pee. Okay. David's men think finally David's going to do what? David's men think what? David's going to kill Saul and become king. Finally, we've been waiting for this day. David just kills Saul and become king, and then we're done with all this running around, right? What happened?
He stops.
Who stops?
David.
His conscience.
Huh?
I think from a worldly perspective, he could have just killed Saul. Like, the guy's been pursuing you. He's trying to kill you. He's the aggressor.
Right.
So it would have made sense. Like, he could have done it, and it would have been morally okay.
Yeah.
But I still try to understand, like, just his conscience. He felt like this is God's anointed one. I shouldn't try to take my place too soon. I don't know.
But what literally happens? David snuck up on Saul and did what? He had a knife and he does what? He cut off a piece of Saul's robe. He cut off a piece of Saul's robe. Oh yeah, relieves himself. Yeah, and then so he doesn't actually kill him, right? Why not? Why do you think he doesn't kill him? No, I took it away. I'll put it back. What do you think, Ivy?
See Saul as God's anointed.
Right, verse 6. How about Mez? Do you mind reading?
And he said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed.
He is the Lord's anointed. Now, this is another example where we can see the difference between Saul and David, right? Are Saul and David, are they both anointed? Yes. They're both anointed by Samuel, a prophet of God, right? They're both anointed. Is Saul willing to kill David? Yes. Why is he not killing David? He can't. God's sort of protecting him. Does David want to kill Saul? No. Is he able to kill Saul? Yes. This is another difference. We keep seeing the difference between David and Saul. David's righteousness versus Saul's unrighteousness, right? And this is another example. David will not kill Saul because it would be wrong. You're killing God's anointed.
And verse 5, it says, and afterwards David's heart struck him because he had cut off the corner of Saul's robe. Even what he did, he felt bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does this remind you of in the Bible? What does this remind you of? Jesus says, well, come on, what does this remind you of, like Old Testament, about wrath?
Vengeance belongs to the Lord.
Vengeance belongs to the Lord. Well, in the Proverbs, it literally says, if someone is evil against you, be righteous to them. You're putting burning coals on their head. You're putting God's wrath on their head, right? This is the way you're supposed to do it. If someone is wicked to you, I know it's hard. If someone's wicked to you, you try to be righteous to them, just like David is doing right now. David has never hurt Saul. No matter how many times Saul has hurt David, David has never aggressively tried to hurt Saul. And this is that vengeance is the Lord. This is not, it takes faith, because David's probably thinking, this guy's ruining my life. But he has to have faith to know God's going to deal with this. No one's going to get off. You're either going to be judged in the end, hell, a judgment day. You're either going to get God's full wrath on that day, or what else? What's the other option?
You're going to be righteous in Jesus and go ahead.
Right. You're going to be clothed in the righteousness of Christ. Clothed in the righteousness of Christ. And God would have taken that judgment on the cross. Right? If you... Yes?
What I see here is like fear of man versus fear of God. Like Saul has such a fear for David because it's a threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And David, I'm sure, has a fear for Saul because this guy is trying to kill him, but he has more fear for God because he's like, the Lord forbid me. So it's all about, because that fear of God is greater, bigger than this fear of men. That's why. Because we all have this fear of men. It's very normal. Very normal.
Right, it's very normal.
It cannot outweigh our fear of God. We would do stupid things.
That's right.
The priority is wrong.
Yeah. Jesus says, don't fear the person who could kill the body. Fear the person that can kill the body and the soul. God has the power to kill the body and the soul. So it's just a very rational reason to say fear the one that has way more power than man, right? Okay. And David would also not allow his men to attack Saul as well. Okay. How about Joanna?
Lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and paid homage.
Okay. So who said, "My Lord the King"? Who said that? Wow. That's humility. That's Asian humility. It's like, you're attacking me, you're attacking me, you're attacking me. I think only an Asian would say,
I'm sorry, but that's not ancient humility. It's true humility.
it's true humility. Okay. I shouldn't say that. My Lord, my Lord the King. Like, you've been trying to kill me all over Israel. You're my king, you know? That's amazing. David's heart is so amazing. It's so nice after seeing the wickedness of Israel for however many chapters of the Old Testament there is so far, seeing how amazing David's heart is. This man is trying to kill him, and he takes Saul's anointedness from Samuel very seriously. Okay, next is Annabelle. Sorry for the long...
And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, Behold, David seek your heart? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you today into my hand in the cave, and some told me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not put out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord anointed."
And look at this. Saul's being told that David seeks Saul's harm. So that's another thing, that Saul's listening to people who are not telling the truth as well. Okay, and next is Caroline. Can you read this?
See, my father, see the corner of your robe in my hand. For by the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see that there is no wrong or great treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you hurt my life to take it.
Hunt my life.
Hunt my life to take it.
All right, so what is the cutting the robe? This means what? It means what? It means proof what? I could have killed you, right? And it's also proof that he's a ninja.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking exactly that word.
All right. Not only did he sneak up on Saul, he also cut his robe so carefully with the sharpest knife in the world without him even knowing. That is pretty impressive. Jake, could you do that? Not even Jake could do that.
Won't do it, just a machine.
Okay, next is Ivy.
May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you, but my hand shall not be against you.
All right, could you keep going? 13, please.
As the parable of the nation says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you.
Wow. And he's taking this, I think this is vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I think David takes God's word very seriously. Like, this is, you've probably never met a man in your whole life that takes God's word as seriously as David. He is not going to go against God's word. Let the Lord avenge me. May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you, but my hand shall not be against you. Wow. That is a man of conviction. He takes the Lord's word very seriously. Anyway, and Jackie.
After whom had the king of Israel come up, after whom you pursue, after a deep God, after a flame. May the Lord therefore be judge and keep sentence between me and you, and see to it, and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand.
So David knows he's innocent here, right? He's not saying, well, I'm not sure who's guilty, who's not. He knows he's guilty, but he's not going to attack, right? All right. So, And that's the end of that little section.
I have a question.
Yes.
Teacher Thomas.
Yes.
If you were David, would you like go out of the cave and go out to Saul? This is all kind of like a restorative justice thing going on. Restorative, like if I were David, I probably would not. I would keep running. I would
Yeah.
keep hiding, and then if Saul like catches up and then gets me, and I'll show him the plot.
But this is a good time because this is a good time, and you're going to see Saul's going to temporarily change again. Sometimes he does this. And so Saul is listening to demons. He's listening to his own lying counselors who are telling him, David's trying to destroy your kingdom. David's after you. David's doing this. David's doing this. And then here David's able to show, look, I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to let the Lord. The Lord is the one who's going to be doing the wrath, not me. And he proves it. And so now Saul has to believe. Not the demons and not his lying counselors, but now Saul's got to believe David for a very short amount of time. Okay, who is next? Judy, do you mind reading?
As soon as David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" And Saul lifted up his voice and said to him. He said to David, "You are mine. You are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil."
Wow. And so it's pretty good when the person who's pursuing you can admit to that. And my son David, remember a long time ago, he was a father-in-law. By the way, Saul, well, I'll tell you later. But he is, I think he's still technically the son-in-law, but I think Saul's giving his old wife, his old daughter, to another man. You are more righteous than me. You have repaid me good where I repaid you evil. James, do you mind reading this?
And you have declared this day, offered to deal well with me. In that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hands. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go instead? So may the Lord reward you with a good for what you have done to me this day.
And so I think David really, this kind of stunt really made Saul think, wow, I'm the one that's wrong right here, right? And next is, how about, who's that? Sophia, do you mind reading?
And now, behold, I know that you shall surely be kings, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me before by the Lord that you will not cut off my offspring after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house.
Wow. So he knows, again, he knows that David's going to be king, and just please don't erase my lineage. Don't kill Jonathan and everything else. There's anyway, don't erase don't completely wipe me out, right? Okay. My family out. And David swore this to Saul. Then Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Okay. So next is Jake. Do you mind reading verse 1?
Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him. And they buried him in his house at Ramah. Then David rose and went down into the wilderness of Paran.
And we've already talked about Ramah before. If you go back, that's where Samuel was from. Wilderness of Paran is right about here. Let's see if Wilderness of Paran. I don't know if I found this place. Wilderness of Paran. I don't know. Does anyone see it? Wilderness of Paran. Oh well, it might not be in this map, but it looks a little bit like this. To me, they kind of all look the same. Yeah, wilderness of Paran. It looks a little bit like a desert. So, there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep at Carmel. His name was Nabal. His wife was Abigail. Who knows about Nabal? Who knows about Nabal? Abigail was discerning and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite. Who were the Calebites?
Descendants of Caleb.
Yes.
Friends of Joshua.
Who was Caleb? Who was Caleb?
One of the spies.
One of the spies. Was he a good spy or a bad spy? He was a good spy. So it's kind of ironic that you have a good spy, but now he doesn't really follow in his father's footsteps, right? And this is back in Numbers. Okay, how about Mila?
And thus you should bring him. Peace be.
Oh, sorry. So what happens? Sorry, if you, I think I skipped ahead. What happened with David? What happened with David? Sorry, Mila. I'll have you read in a second. What happened with David? David wanted what?
Oh, he wanted just provisions for his men.
Right. So David has been there. While he's there, he's been protecting his shepherds, Nabal's shepherds, and now it's a holiday, right? It's a holiday. Nabal's shepherds, Nabal's men have been there, and David has been there protecting Nabal's men, and now it's a holiday. And so what does David want? What did you say, Mez?
Just food and supplies.
So David says it's a holiday, and David wants to go get supplies. And remember, in Israel, everyone's supposed to be kind of like a big family. That's the way, kind of like the church. You know, the church, we're supposed to be brothers and sisters in Christ. Israel's supposed to be like that too. You're not even supposed to, if you look at the Old Testament, you weren't even supposed to, if someone were to borrow money from me, you're not even supposed to charge interest. You're supposed to be this one big family, you know? And so, Nabal's very rich. You're kind of expecting, okay, we'll give you some food. You've been protecting my soldiers. It's a holiday. We're from Israel. Anyway, sorry, Mila. Could you read again?
And those you should bring him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers.
Yep.
Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel.
All right, so, yeah, shearers, they're the ones that cut the sheep's wool. And David has been protecting his shepherds. They didn't do any harm. David's men are all very righteous. And they missed nothing. No one's coming and stealing the shepherd's things. David's been there protecting them. And so this is going to be kind of like a nice little thing, a nice little reward for David's men. So David sent these 10 young men to greet Nabal and say in David's name, okay? What was Nabal's answer? Well, sorry, let's keep reading. Ask your young men, and they will tell you, therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David. So what was Nabal's answer? What was Nabal's answer? Who knows?
He insulted them.
All right, let's read it. All right, Mila, what do you think? read it. Oh, sorry. Patricia, sorry.
And Nabal answered David's servant, who is David, who is the son of Jesse. There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Should I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know where?
So what is he saying here? What is he saying?
I don't know everything from the person.
It's
He's insulting him like you're as low as a servant, you're nobody.
yeah.
Give you anything.
So Nabal's answer, David is anointed to be king. He's protecting these men. He's an Israelite. It's a holiday. Nabal's answer is, who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? And what is it? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their master. What is he saying? What is he saying? They're runaway slaves. I mean, this is a huge insult. David is going to be the king of Israel, and Nabal says, you're probably just a runaway slave. I mean, this is very foolish talk. This is just, you don't say this. This is not very diplomatic. You don't, even if you're thinking it, you don't say it, And so, shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know. So, calling them runaway slaves, basically not giving them provisions and calling them runaway. I think probably calling them runaway slaves and all this stuff when he's been there protecting them the whole time and not asking. He could have asked his shepherds, were these people helping you? And they would say, yeah, they helped us. No harm came to us because these men were here. He could have done that if he was wise. But no, he just kind of, just very, very foolish man. The description of him in the Bible is very accurate. He's just very foolish. The first thing he thinks of is just, he thinks they're runaway slaves, and he actually says it. You're probably just runaway slaves. I'm not going to give you anything. How do I know anything? I mean, he could have asked questions or whatever, but anyway, this is an enormous insult against a man who was anointed by Samuel.
But is it possible Nabal was not aware that David was anointed?
It's possible. But here, it says, who is David? Who is Jesse? Again, you could have asked. He could have asked around, who is David? Because David has been anointed by Samuel. Everyone knows this. News travels. Just because they didn't have smartphones back then or newspapers, news still had a way of traveling. And so he could have asked around, oh, David's anointed. He could have talked to his servants, made sure they weren't runaway slaves. He could have done these things, but he's very foolish. He just insults first. This is the typical, like when people think about rich people, they think about, oh, they're out of touch and not very empathetic. What were you saying, James? What?
So David is not king yet at that time.
Not yet.
But
He's not king yet. He's anointed. He's anointed, but Saul has to.
He's not yet.
He's not the king yet. Saul is king, but David is anointed to be king. David's going to replace Saul because Saul was very unrighteous.
So he was anointed by Samuel.
Yeah.
But it's not his time to be
Future king.
He's like a general. He was a
It's like a general at the place, right? Or what?
Who's the general? David. Yeah, he was kind of like a general.
The military at the place.
Right.
He would slay the Philistines.
Oh, yeah.
He was very good at war. Yeah.
Very much general.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah, kind of like a general.
Saul's daughters, and
Right.
his son-in-law.
So the man should know him.
Yeah, well, like I said,
That is why it's kind of insulting.
Nabal's very foolish. He doesn't know anything, and then he's very fool. He doesn't ask around. He doesn't ask the servants. He's just very foolish. He's just like, I guess, aloof, kind of out in his own world, and I don't know you. I'm not going to try to figure out who you are. Let me just, you're probably just a runaway slave. Just like very insulting. Yes.
I thought of Gaston from
Ah.
the Beast.
No, he's one of my favorite characters in all of Disney.
He's like an
Gaston, dun, 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 dun. I love all the.
like all about himself, narcissistic, and he's foolish. That's exactly what I thought of. That person from being
No.
kind of like this, just in his own head, and everyone else is like, you're kind of an idiot, but you're the only one who doesn't quite know that, and he thinks he's smart and the best thing ever.
Now that's one of my favorite songs in Disney. Is the old cartoon version of Gaston.
The original?
Yeah, they're.
From 1990 something?
Yeah, 1990, and they're all singing for Gaston, Gaston, and they're all drinking beer and they're to Gaston. Anyway, yeah, he is. He's got. It's just two sentences, right? How can you? Well, maybe more sentences than that, but like one paragraph. How can you insult someone so severely in such a brief amount of time? Anyway, and so, what is David going to do? What is David going to do? David is so insulted that he gets his men ready and he's going to go and he's going to kill him. Is it okay for him to kill Nabal?
I have a question about that. That's my question.
Yes.
Is that okay? Like, in that context, is he allowed to kill him for the insult? 'Cause
No,
it
he's
doesn't
not.
seem that way.
He is not, and it's very clear from the chapter that he's not able to do that. If he kills Nabal for this, David would probably be executed, according to the law, if it's carried out. He would be probably sent to elders in, I don't know which city, but elders in some area, and they would probably execute him. Murder is, not only is it against Mosaic law, but it's against, it was the law given by Noah when everyone left the ark, that a person who kills man, that man should be killed as well. And that's, I think, Genesis chapter 9. So it is not okay for David to do this. Okay. So yes, he's going to kill because of the insult, right? So next, we're going to Abigail's wife. How about Wade? Do you mind reading this?
But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master. And he read and then, yes, the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything. When we were in the fields, as long as we went with them.
So this is just showing you how foolish Nabal is. Even the young men, one of the shepherds probably, is saying, my master's crazy. They should have provided for this guy. David, men, they were very good to us. We suffered no harm. We did not miss anything with that. They protected us. They're so good to us. This is going to be, the provisions that Nabal was going to give David would be kind of like a love gift. Like we help each other, we have a good relationship, and Nabal just insults David so much, and he doesn't even consult the men. The men who are out there or there, they know how helpful David was. Okay, Mez, do you mind reading this?
They were a law to us, both by day and by night. All the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know this and consider what you should do. For harm is determined against our master and against all his house. And he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him.
Okay, so oh my gosh, and so now we're seeing more about all the, and these are Nabal's men defending David, And they're not saying, oh no, David's mad, he's an angry guy. They're saying they were so nice to us. They were a wall to us, both day and night, while we were with them keeping the sheep. They were a wall. And we're seeing just how righteous David is through all this stuff. They were a wall. No one could come and hurt us because these righteous men were protecting us. And then they're telling Abigail, Nabal's wife, consider what you could do because now they want to kill us. And this is Nabal's men. Nabal is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. Like you can't. He's such a fool that he just. The Proverbs probably talks about the fool that rejects wise counsel. This is Nabal. He would just. Not only is he an idiot, but when someone pleads with him reason, they reject that too. Nabal is just a complete fool. Yes?
I think from those verses, it seems like it was common knowledge. He has his reputation.
Right,
like
probably.
Servants, it's like the first time someone's telling Abigail this.
Right.
It's commonly known.
Right. And Abigail's better. So Abigail took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already prepared, and 5 seahs of parched grain, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys, and she brought the food to David. So Abigail's going quick. Abigail's trying to pour water on this situation. What's Abigail doing? Abigail's Nabal's wife. What is Abigail doing? She's doing what?
Deliver food.
Why? Right. David's going to go kill them. She's trying to do this stuff to kind of make him less angry. Okay, next is Joanna. Do you mind reading this chapter?
Now David said, surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has done. Nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David and more also, if by morning I lose so much as 1 meal of all that belongs to him.
So David is ready to... this is similar to Saul, right? Like Saul, except this is just... David's ready to kill. How many people is David going to kill? God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as 1 male of all who belong to him. He's going to kill Nabal, and then who else? All the men, right?
Yeah, sack it.
All right, sack. Okay. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. She's the wise wife who is trying to calm everyone down. And so she says this, Annabelle. That's Abigail. All right, so Nabal's name means fool. And even his wife, Abigail, is saying, yes, he's a fool. As his name is fool, he is a fool. But look at this. On me alone, my Lord, be the guilt. Wow. She's accepting the responsibility. She's saying, put your wrath on me. She's kind of putting herself like as a Jesus figure right here, to save everyone else, right? Okay, next is Caroline. Do you mind reading?
Now then, my Lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt and from fleeing with your own hand. Now then, let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as Nebel. And now that it is present that the servant has brought to me, Lord, to give it to the young man who follow my Lord.
Okay, so David would have been guilty of blood guilt. he would have committed a murder. And then legally Saul can now execute him. Everyone would have said, yeah, he committed a murder. But Abigail is stopping all this. Okay, next is Ivy. Could you read?
Please forgive the trespass of the servant, for the Lord will certainly grant bless my Lord and the sure house. Bless my Lord will be quiet in the battle of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you, so long as you live.
Okay. Pleading for forgiveness from David. All right, Jackie.
If man rise up to pursue you and seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be found in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God. And the leaves of your enemies he shall slide out as from the hollow of a slide. And when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you and has appointed you prince over Israel.
All right, so it looks like Abigail knows of the promise. So if Abigail knows, Nabal should know, right? All right, you guys are all tired. Okay, let's just keep going. Next is Judy. Do you mind reading?
My Lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord will be salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with the Lord, then remember his servant.
Okay, James.
And David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who have kept me this day from the blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand.
Wow. We're running a little bit out of time. I would encourage you to go back and compare what Nabal said to what Abigail said. Abigail, she was very wise in how she was able to solve the problem. She was very rational where, don't do this. And she goes through a nice list of things. We don't have time to go through it, but she goes through very convincing ways. And at the end, sure enough, David's not going to commit the murder. And then she even says, bless you, keeping me for this day from blood guilt. Okay, and Sophia?
For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly my warfare had not been left in the bowl so much as one now.
So this is Sophia, this is why you showed up today. Abigail.
Oh, I am going to share something.
Strain. All right. So, do you want to share it right now?
No, later.
Okay.
After the end of the story.
So David received her food. Abigail came to Nabal, who was holding a feast in his house, like a feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry because he was drunk. Okay. How about Jake? Do you mind reading?
In the morning when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died.
So it looks like he probably had a heart attack. So Nabal is very foolish. He probably just thought, he's just not very wise. He had no idea this was coming. He had no idea his insult would do this. And then Abigail very graciously tells him, by the way, this is what almost happened. And he probably had a heart attack, right? And then he died. And then 10 days later, the Lord struck him. And it looks as though, Now, was David's heart right or wrong? What do you think?
It's wrong.
You think David's heart was wrong?
Initially, the Abigail came and convicted him of his sin.
I would argue that David's, he was right to be angry. And so we see here the Lord struck Nabal and he died. So God judged Nabal, right? But it was a case of he's not letting the Lord do the judging. David, if he had killed Nabal, he would be would have blood guilt. And back then, you don't go to prison for 20 years. You get killed very soon. But David has a heart that's very similar to God. So I think David, he was right to be angry and think Nabal must die. He was right about that. But let the Lord do it. It's the Lord's. Right. Let the Lord do the wrath. The wrath belongs to the Lord, not for us.
And so I feel like when we do it, it becomes revenge, not justice. And it's out of proportion,
Right.
We don't do it.
And God calls us.
It's usually out of revenge.
God calls us to be righteous. He calls us, if someone is evil to us, let them be evil to us, and we'll be the righteous one. And that requires faith. It requires faith that one day you're going to die, they're going to die, and you're going to be talking about this on the judgment day, and you're going to tell God, he did evil with me, I did righteous to them, they did evil to me, I did righteous to them, and then God is going to let them have it. You're pouring burning coals on their head for a reason. God is, wrath is going to come. But let wrath come from a holy God who is more intelligent than everyone in the world put together, and let the righteous wrath come. And don't you try to play God, right?
God sent a life to David, because David said, if you don't come to me, and then I will kill Nabal.
Maybe.
No man left.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, God within it, yes.
So it's also maybe getting revenge. Yeah.
But don't take revenge into your own hands.
All right, we're almost finished. Jake, do you mind reading this?
Yeah, I can. I just read it last one. Do you want me to read it again?
Did you already read this?
No, I just read the last one. I'm going to read it again.
Oh, no, sorry. Thank you. Mila, you gotta read this.
You are tired too.
My short-term memory. I've been with you so long. What? Mila, could you please read this?
When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head. That David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her and his wife."
Yeah. So,
Nabal and David is no relation. How can he take his wife as his own?
Because she's beautiful and smart.
wait, they're no relation?
Yeah, I mean, it's not relevant. Yeah, normally when the brother died and then the wife.
Oh, yeah.
Have a crush on her because she's beautiful.
She's beautiful and wise and probably godly. Probably. The assumption is.
No, just because she's smart and beautiful.
But she's a gold digger. She's a gold digger. Anyway, I'm just kidding.
So maybe there is a reason he didn't kill
Because how can you say no to a beautiful and intelligent woman?
What was she wearing when she went to David?
I love how she said. I love how she said, "Yeah, my husband. He's called Nabal for a reason. He's a fool." Like, oh my gosh. But anyway, let me wrap it up really quick. So Nabal died. Abigail married David, and then David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel. And both of them became his wives. So this is not good, right? 2 wives. That's not good. The first person in the book of Genesis to do that was Lamech. Anyway, and Saul gave Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to another man, Palti, the son of Laish. So one of David's wives, the first one, he just lost her because Saul gave her to another man. So Saul, clearly, Saul's back to his old ways, right? And David's not a perfect man. He married 2 women. That's not good, right? It's not good to marry 2 men. There wasn't Adam, Eve, and Cindy, and Michelle, and right. There's 2 win. Anyway, why don't